Well, I hope I'm not going to disappoint now, but I think what I have got to say follows on very well from some of Bert's points, actually. And, who knew it would be so difficult to be some of these human attributes? Because arguably we are being other human attributes. And when I think of my experiences, as a leader and of being led and of being really a student of leadership, then an approach for leadership, I think, starts to stand out for me from some of Sarah's work. Um, and it is worth remembering, I think, that so much of what we look for and maybe even assess in leaders when we're in that space spans over time. And yet, culture, of course, is built up by very frequent, consistent, and small steps. So I think the real challenge for leaders, I believe, is themselves. It's that inner work to be done for all of us, and Sarah, I think in your intro, you said feel so many times, but there's something so important about being in the physical and psychological state to put these elements such as humility and empathy into daily practice so that leaders are able really to effectively and efficiently create now environments and organizations which are fair and happy and healthy. And picking up on a couple of points, I always twitch at the sort of being comfortable with not knowing, and in some ways this relates to humility. There's so much legacy for leaders to leave behind and a need to really reset what's expected of leaders. So in some ways it's more about the tolerance of discomfort and perceived personal risk that comes with being really understanding of our features and flaws, and actually that all of these are very visible to others. Fundamentally, leadership is about learning. And I've been amazed at just how difficult it is to let go of the need to tell and simply ask your team or ask somebody what they think. So when I think about this point about how we lead and what that then translates to in terms of actions, I've certainly felt that there's not one approach that suits everyone. I can recall in our team work together, lengthy conversations around putting a golden hour into our team's diaries. And this was kind of an undisturbed hour for other things. And this was at a time when email-free Fridays were in vogue, it was very much a prevailing topic. But I think there was something niggling away at us that this wouldn't necessarily suit everybody. Some people were working part-time, they weren't there on a Friday. Client calls always took precedence. So what we did was enable people to choose which part of every day that they would take a golden hour, and decide what was best for them. And I can remember having discussions with my team about what I had done as a leader, role modeling in a way that, and indeed how they were spending the time. And it could have been a simple walk, it could have been they were reading a book, it could have been going to a yoga class, it could have been whatever, but people started to keep momentum around that. And I think it draws out a dynamic that Sarah's got on here about, the collective, that power, that it's about we in there. There's a dynamic that goes on and we all play a part in creating culture, and whilst the leader's job maybe is to ensure that there's an environment in which individuals can openly say if things don't suit them and really speak out about what might suit them, that I think is the way to go. There's great quotes, isn't it? Then, we've talked about the productivity and outcomes and actually business success. Well, nobody knows as much as all of us. And we're starting to see, I think now in particular, a real readiness for team and group focus, which really leverage this innate desire to be connected, to have a place where you're valued and respected and you belong, and in service of a shared outcome. And I guess my final point that leaps out from this, then I'll stop, I promise, is that it's not, I don't think it's a matter of capability. I think it's really a matter of conscious choice and commitment, and almost for leaders now to operate from a place of conscious incompetence, almost, I come from a practice discipline background as a professional musician, and I know that with any practice, there are times when it's really, really hard. There are times when you definitely don't want to do it. I mean, I can be recall almost Sarah being dragged kicking and screaming to the virtual pub crawl to take a sort of leadership part in that. I'd have much rather have been in the actual pub. Sometimes we're having to, of course, get out of bad habits and create new ones. And you have to keep going when at times it's so much easier to do things how you've always done it or more in line with your natural preferences. And so, whilst this sort of habit forming approach isn't going to work all of the time, it is about trying to put yourself in the state to operate in that way and really try to reflect the elements Sarah's drawn out and really change the systems we have throughout life, really. I think this is the work required of leaders. Thank you.
I feel hugely inspired,
Over.
Sean. I don't know about anyone else, but I've written notes after that. I'm feeling like there was a call to arms, let alone a call to action off the back of that one. So number one, thank you, because again, hugely generous with your experience there. I think the only thing I'd add to that is that element of loud modeling. That for me is such an important part around defining culture, which frankly, as we all are in agreement now, is the product of all of our actions and interactions. It's nothing that can be imposed on us. It is what we do, what we choose to do, what we repeatedly do. That great quote by Aristotle: excellence is not an act, it's a habit. Musicians, the 10,000 hour idea, all of these things. And I think that curiosity and humility, they're such powerful forces in leadership. And I would like to hope that as we move through into this sort of next decade, or the next half of this decade and into the 2030s, the culture within large corporate organizations, as we have more millennials reaching managerial levels and senior manager levels, I would hope that some of those cultural norms within different intergenerational groups will break down perhaps some of those perceived barriers that you sort of touched on there, and that element of servant leadership. And kind of comes back to it, the All Blacks. If you're a member of the All Black team, whether you're playing hockey, cricket, rugby, you represent that country. The concept there is you're all a captain of a club, a region, and then only one of you gets to be the captain of your country. But you all have to be very humble in your leadership because you are all leaders, but you need to be led. So it's blown my brain. I loved it. This is a great element of what Sarah's drawing out here.